And it's kind of been his pocket pick since he joined the LPL. A lot of teams have been respecting it the entire time he's had his career here, and you get to see how IG want to try and play around this, because this is definitely a champion that wants to try and invade, wants to try and get rolling in the early stages, but also gives the option for IG to go for some sort of poke composition if you want, especially when you're looking at a short range comp already locked in by LNG, with the Aphelios taken away, possibility for the Viego here for Tarzan. I wouldn't be surprised if IG tried to take something like an Ezreal here in the bot side and just look to play long range against LNG.
Okay, a good point. I'll also throw in there, Dagda, that Yuekai's picked up the Renekton before. Back in LPL days, previous patches, we saw a lot of combination between the two. Maybe even things like the Sejuani to keep an eye out for. But for now, explosion in the bottom lane. This is what you wanted to see, Dagda. You wanted to see set up for success in the 2v2 and shouldn't influence. Well, with the Nidalee and Misfortune, I think that's a great start.
I agree. I think it's going to be really important to see how the ability to try and keep this Aphelios under check in these late game team fights is going to come to fruition. I think the Misfortune is a great pick against the Aphelios because you get good push in lane thanks to Make It Rain. The ultimate makes it very difficult for Aphelios to actually approach these fights. And in theory, if you're set up correctly, it shouldn't be that easy for Allah to try and get on towards the backline either with this Gnar. True. But I haven't been the biggest fan of Allah consistently blind picking this Gnar, because it feels like there's a ton of options. We've even got to see the Silas now come out as a counter pick. We got to see that a little bit yesterday. I think you've got options in the likes of the Camille and these kind of things as well, which Zika loves to play. So I feel like LNG now have to start banning away some of these top lane champions.
Okay, you already named out the Camille. He's played things like the Riven as well, Jax, Gwen. Surprisingly, we don't see Gwen in the first rotation. As that Renekton we mentioned before, Dagda, that's going to be banned away, getting rid of some of the combinations. And it's good that you highlighted the solo lanes here for IG, because they have been pretty pivotal, especially that mid lane that has been part of the setup of Shun's success. So we'll have to see if LNG targets something away from him, because, yeah, we are getting some solo lane bans coming through.
What timeline are we in, Hysterics? That Azir has to be banned against Doinb. Like, what? True. What have LNG done to my boy? What happened? Like, what is this world that we now live in? But yeah, Renekton's going to be banned away. Galio banned away from Yuekai, and I think this is a good shout. Yuekai, as we said, a guy who definitely likes to try and play these more facilitator champions. He's played a lot of like Galios. We've seen Set, Ornn, Sion, Renekton, like Lysandras. He's totally happy to just go, right, I'm just going to help set you up. And I think when you're looking at IG, I've talked about it before, I'm not the biggest fan of just having a Nautilus as your engage tool, especially alongside something like when you've got the Braum on the opposite side. Braum can do a really good job of blocking that initial engage. So I want to see more setup here on IG's side. And that's what I'm curious to see if we end up with something like the Camille here for Zika that can help like lock people up and then set up for the bullet time as well.
Because normally some of the setup comes from mid too, but you've taken that out with Galio as Poppy gets locked in. Now, Jungle Poppy looking like it here, Dagda, because unless Doinb has decided to show us the last of Predator before it got nerfed.
Wait, what? Wait, all you have to do is just go Jace here. Like, screw it, just go full range here.
Oh,
why would you not take engage? Like, you have 0 engage on LNG side. If you just go for Jace, you got a good matchup against the Gnar. You can just push for days. You have, like, essentially winning lanes across the board then. And, I mean, even Yuekai could go for something like Zoe if you want to. And then you just don't have to care about it. I mean, the Gwen, not going to do exactly what I was looking for there. But still, I mean, you have no engage against uber range on IG side.
That's a good point, actually. And I don't think Braum's going to be able to protect all of it. For IG, Dagda, maybe they're not listening to you, though. I think the Jace is a valuable key to this puzzle. But for IG, okay, they're going to set up some engage instead, give themselves the front line. And I'm going to need your thoughts about where you end up on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Sion mid for Yuekai again. Like, this guy has just been totally happy to play tanks and just, again, play that facilitator role for the Nidalee. But it does mean that you don't really have the opportunity to push in mid very well, because you're going to end up in the scenario where you're range versus melee. You don't have good push in top side either, because Gnar, at least in the early stages, can push in that lane. So this Nidalee is going to struggle to actually find invades as this game starts to go on. She can try and play around bot side a little bit, but you always have to be careful, especially with Doinb now taking the Taliyah, that you're not going to end up with just more company from LNG side, especially post 6.
Well, moving around the map, the star member of LNG this split still gets a little piece of what he wants. And, you know, for IG, the direction here, Dagda, he talked about playing at range, but now that we have a Sion mid and a Gwen on the top side, we didn't get your Jace. We didn't add to the range, so round me up about how this comp wants to play out, especially in the start of the game. You talked about invades already and Shun, what he can do right off the bat, but I kind of want to know how skirmishes work, how the first couple of Drakes work in its entirety.
Yeah, I feel like LNG's composition is lacking a little bit of an identity, because you look at like Nidalee and Misfortune, they spike heaviest around the mid game. Then you look at Gwen, who kind of has that like late game insurance, and you got the Sion who wants to be that late game insurance, but you don't really have a late game AD carry or a late game jungle carry that can kind of facilitate that. So it definitely feels like a little bit of an oddball. I would have preferred to see them all in a little bit more on that mid game identity with things as we start talking about like the Jace and play for poke, things like the Zoe. That felt like you could have done reasonably well. But because when you look across at LNG side, this Aphelios is now going to have a great time in team fights. You've got a Sion who wants to jump in on top of him, the Gwen as well. Gwen, I suppose, will be a little bit of an issue for Light in theory because of the Hollowed Mist, but definitely means that you've now got a composition that wants to play into the strengths of LNG, where Doinb can set up multiple different Unraveled Earths for the Nidalee, so she can't really get involved in the fight. Light's just better enabled. Gnar as well is in a better opportunity to actually become responsible in these fights with big Gnar ultimates. Like, it just all goes a bit skewed now for IG.
Well, skewed is not good though if we ever reference it to Doinb's side, as he takes a massive spear on the money here for Shun, who Dagda was saying in pick ban, 100% ban rate against IG so far of the split. Shun has been playing this champion. It needs 2 for 2. I think that's more than Yankos has gotten in some of his pro games. You know, no flame, but it's true.
I mean, look, Shun is a beast on this pick, and I'm super excited to see it, because especially LNG, as we said, have been struggling to get going in the early point of the game. If IG are successfully ever to play around Shun, it feels like he should have a brilliant time to be able to get to a point where he's landing a ton of poke, he becomes a menace on invades, and Tarzan can do pretty well against it, because you can't all in as Shun if you go for invades, because you've got the steadfast presence, but it still means that Shun can get a ton of auto attacks down and look to try and play around that style, although he is running the Electrocute rather than the Conqueror. Conqueror works a lot better if you want to try and play around your auto attacks and like speed up the damage through that, but Electrocute very much of more of an all-in potential where you want to try and look to play around the lanes a bit more.
Well, Tarzan taking Predator on the other side, so we got red junglers here. Speaking of which, both on the top side of the map for now, and it seems like Shun is preparing himself for a strong level 3. And I want to say as well, Dagda, that on the other side, seeing Tarzan on something like the Poppy now, you talked about the limited engage here. You did talk about in draft how there are specific windows for LNG, but still, it's going to rely on, I guess, what? Being at the right place at the right time, is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's the problem that I'm seeing with Tarzan, is that I just don't know how he's relevant in this game. Like, realistically, it's like, okay, well, no, but the fight should already be over when the majority of the people you're going to stop with the steadfast presence are jumping in. The Shun isn't going to do it until he's got some good poke down, and probably Wink's already tossed at the ultimate. Yuekai, you're not really going to be able to hit with the steadfast presence. Zika should be totally fine as well. I just don't see what the Poppy's trying to do here. And even if you're like looking at team fights, you're like, oh, okay, well, let's knock back the big engage tools. Let's get Yuekai out of the fight. Let's get Zika out of the fight. Where's your follow-up engage to actually use that window? Like, you just don't have any other engage to help you abuse that. So I'm just not sure what the Poppy's supposed to be trying to do here, other than, oh, well, I can't get all in if Shun lands a spear because I can steadfast presence, which just doesn't make a huge amount of sense in big out team fights.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, that's a good thing though. That's a win then. Maybe he's just using it to wall someone into Doinb's ultimate. So at the very least, we'll keep a track on this jungler, because on the other side, Shun clearing like a menace so far. That ward spots out Doinb on the roam down, and IG, their priority comes as a given as Seismic Shove doesn't land, and Shun is setting up for the first Scuttle Crab with the opportunity to get double over Tarzan in this early game. Dagda, CS lead building, and it's already +8.
I think Shun is going to struggle to try and play around this top side and even the early scuttles because of the way mid and top are set up. Allah should be able to use his range to continuously push in this wave. Same you look at mid lane. So trying to play for top scuttle can become very scary if the rest of LNG start to play around Tarzan. So that's why we're seeing Shun not actually just run through mid to move across, but looks like there might be a bit of a push set up here in mid with Yuekai. So maybe he wants to try and look for this topside scuttle, but I'd assume he's aware that it might be gone. But no, gonna just have a quick look.
But meanwhile, we haven't engaged in the bottom lane. Good dredge line onto Light here with the Ignite getting dropped down. Lwandy and Light both burning a Summer Reach with XinLiu's Ignite the only thing to drop now. Shun makes an appearance mid. We do have I was going to say a Yankos moment, but I think I've already bullied him enough. He's not even in the game. You know, we wanted watching LPL, not hating on a caster. So as Shun appears mid, at the very least, Dagda, the shove enables topside to be a bit of movement here from IG.
And surprisingly, Yuekai has an advantage in the lane because Doinb ran out of mana, which meant he couldn't really clear the wave, so you can see he's falling behind. And that gives Yuekai the potential for a dive here. Allah's going to probably die.
Yeah, he's going to have to hop out in one specific direction, but the spear lands. Shun on point so far. The hop gives him first blood. And this Nidalee with 100% ban rate, you can see why as Shun opens the game.
I mean, that was just really well played by Shun. Hitting the spear without any sort of CC needed to be landed. Just a thought that I've had as well there is because people aren't playing on LAN, because we are actually back home, there is going to be a bit of lag, which actually does tend to help Nidalee. One of the things that people talk about a lot when you pick a Nidalee on live or on LAN is that because the ping is so low, it becomes very easy to dodge your spears. But, I mean, with the higher ping, you can kind of see there, kind of helping out Shun a little bit, but I don't want to distract from Shun. That was just a really nice spear and good predict. But definitely going to be something I'll be thinking about as this game goes on.
So what you're saying is I should duo with you on EUS, play Nidalee, and that way I can, you know, I can get a buff to my jungle gameplay
that's the way it
because
works,
of the ping.
Well, see, the thing is, it's not that Nidalee has lag, it's that the opposition has lag that makes it harder to dodge. So I feel like we need to ask politely for the entirety of EU West to join the OCE server.
Yeah.
And then you can do it. Yeah. I'm sure if we ask really nicely, they will.
To be fair, people have said there's similarities between the servers, but I think I enjoyed EUS more, so I'd relish at the idea of bringing them over to OCE. As we've been bantering away and then that first blood's come through, Shun goes back to pick up an amplifying tome, but I'm not even sure if he made the full back because he's still clearing his heart out as Ala in the top side. He's got an ulti at the ready and Tarzan on the way. Without his level 6 might not matter. Ala burning his though, and that's great. Zika with the needlework. Number 2 flies out, but the charge from Tarzan secures a kill, and now both junglers suddenly open their hearts to blood in this game 1.
Yeah, I'm surprised Zika didn't just pop the ultimate a little bit sooner there to try to dissuade Allah's all in, especially as he knew that Tarzan was more than likely going to be on this top side, because there is a control ward at the back of the Wolves pit there on LNG's side, so they should have been able to spot which side of the map that the Poppy was on, but does get caught out. Tarzan will now steal away the blue. Might end up in a pretty alright spot now that he's got at least a kill back in the favor of LNG. But IG, as you can already see, a gold lead. That dragon is starting off nicely for Invictus Gaming.
And Dagda as well. Doinb's about to hit 6, but not important as we talk about the 6 in the top lane that Ala played nicely.
Yeah, I feel like if you already start the ultimate here, you should be able to get like a decent amount of healing off, get the Conqueror stacked a little bit earlier, and potentially get the kill onto Ala. It looked like Zika was trying to be a little bit greedy and waiting for the mini-Gnar to come through from Ala before he wanted to look for the all-in, but when you know that you're more than likely going to have Tarzan on that top side, you just should pop the ult, even just from a healing perspective as well from the get-go.
True. In fact, it was so slow means he dies and Tarzan gets Predator boots with the Lucidity here upgraded. So this Poppy on the board with level 6, but Shun's used this window once again as he appears towards the top side to invade the jungle. Still ahead in the CS game, and Dagda, I could say that about all lanes right now as they move up to the Herald, start this one off. And LNG are going to be slow to the play considering that Tarzan and Doinb are quite far away.
Oh, Lwandy.
Wow. The shield goes up though. Dredgeline flashed away from. Winter's Bite doesn't connect. Here's the Weaver's Wall. Doinb as he flies across it and Light joining in as well. They turn heads onto the other side. It's Ala who's about to go on the Mega Gnar just in time, but it may not matter. Short on the back of the play, trying to poke them out as the needlework now starts hidden away. Yuekai's already down, but the zombie form Sion returns as Shun's out in the middle of this, but I don't know what he's going to do with the flash away, the seismic shove. Wink joins in, the bullet time on to Doinb, the flash over. Wink wants the movement speed, but it's in Doinb's nature. There's a spear, yep, no, not going to connect, and LNG get turned on once again, but the trade seems to be in their favor.
I mean, messy fight, from IG. Try to take the skirmish when you actually don't have Wink in the area. So 5 members of LNG show up and put IG in the dirt. Advantage now when it comes towards the kills for LNG. But with IG being that little bit healthier, they will be able to secure this Rift Herald. So at least in future times, we might see IG being able to equal up for the kill difference, but we'll have to see as we watch in the replay. A couple of different things here. I actually got a bit worried when Lwandy exhaust XinLiu here to try and get the slow to help Light get into position, but you don't really get much out of this. So when XinLiu then flashes, they can actually get the kill onto Allah before he gets the Mega Gnar off, which makes this fight a little bit more easier. But again, you can see like Zika is in the middle here, but there's just you've already got Light in the fight, Wink on his way to the fight, so IG are just fighting at too big of a numbers disadvantage, and eventually Wink shows up, but it is just that bit too late.
Yeah, it flashes over the wall, the commitment's sad, but still, as you mentioned, the Herald there is flashing the bottom lane, seismic shove. Sorry, it's a charge against the wall, but it doesn't matter. He's butted, he's hit, and Light picks up the kill, and Dagda for LNG, their early game really ramping up here now that Doinb 6 and now that Tarzan is unleashed.
I mean, a lot of this is coming from Tarzan. The fact that he's actually able to find so many of these engages. He got to play topside, now moving around to bot lane as well. Like, Tarzan is putting in work in this early game. So I'm kind of, oh, actually, we're just getting a replay on the bottom side. Looks like, yeah, XinLiu getting caught out of mid lane as well. So yeah, while we're in the other replay, so messy stuff across the board from IG, and LNG doing a great job to punish.
He went through a bounce now. XinLiu got sent left, sent to the right, and sent away to the graveyard once again. 0-2 start here on the Nautilus, but note that across the board, IG not looking too healthy here. They're down 1,000 gold after Shun got a successful topside gank, and now it is only Shun Dagda who leads the charge here with kills. They might have a CS advantage, as we talked about before, but still LNG in a healthy place, and I was going to ask you how it progresses from here when you're the team that's netted yourself a pretty comfortable early game.
I'm going to hold on to this because I don't know if we're going to get a fight over this filter.
Mate, yep, thank you. Lazulti, and he just takes it away. So, Dagda, my question's still there, and now you have to answer it.
Yeah. So, I think from LNG side, you're pretty much on a good path here. You've got Light with 2 kills. He's starting to scale. You can use the fact you got pushed now for Doinb and mid to start to play around the spot side. Make sure that you're able to take these last 2 turret plates as well. And that's why you see IG trying to respond to this, because they know that even with the Rift Herald, they can't really put that down anywhere else on the map, because it means that LNG just commit to players on the bottom side and trade turret plates. So I think from LNG side, kind of just keep on keeping on at the moment, trying to play around this bot lane. When it looks across at IG, I think that's where the real question marks start to come in. Because ideally, you'd like to try and play around these dragons, but because you've got Wink behind and not really in a position to try and carry fights, you need to rely on Zika, who honestly isn't in a great spot yet either. So from IG, this is what I was kind of talking about with their mixed identity. Because they don't have Wink in a good spot, they can't really play around Wink, but your scaling from Yuekai and Zika isn't there yet.
As Yuekai is going to be spotted out here. Tarzan waiting in the brush, just hoping someone comes into him. Now IG using a bit of that bot side push to get back onto Dragon. Dagda on the other side. We're speaking about IG's mixed identity, but I want to note that for LNG, we talked a lot about dragons and setting up their timings. For now, they're just going to push mid themselves, but lose yet another dragon in this early game.
Yeah, so 2 dragons go the way of IG. I want to see what LNG are going to do with this. They're stealing away the blue buff at the moment, and are accidentally going to let it reset, so they may not even get the blue buff. Doinb got to start that up again, but they're not trading like turret plates and topside. They're not really doing anything, so it's not only the fact that they're trying to just get blue. I mean, late resets mean they may actually lose the tower on bot side here as well.
And even the ult here as Tarzan sends the Herald away, back into the river. Now becomes a neutral that wants to help IG. The charge will still come through. He's bought a bit of time here, Dagda, but IG stick around. The charge goes through, and with a slither of HP left on the turret, the gold is shared. So buying a bit of time, but the response isn't going to be too much in LNG's favor as Wink still gets first turret blood. 6-10 to the Misfortune, who is now going to be shaping that first item with the next back.
Yeah, it felt like LNG just weren't willing to fight for the dragon without the Gale Force complete on towards Light. And maybe we start to see a different idea from them now that you've got that completed. But the problem is that you're looking across and saying, okay, well, with the goal that Wink just picked up, he's now actually getting back into this, despite the fact that he's 2 kills behind. He already has the Eclipse. halfway up towards the Manamune as well. And if you try to fight towards the Rift Herald on top side, that's when you're kind of leaning in towards Zika's territory, where I think Zika with the Rift Herald can actually be a bit of a nuisance for Light and prevent him from actually getting a ton of that damage off in the fight with that Hollowed Mist. So you've actually got to be pretty careful with LNG, how you try and play around this Rift Herald when it's up in just over a minute and a half's time.
And when the vision's getting choked out a bit as well, right? Like, Sion has been on a tear. Has the second highest vision score tied with Wink, but it's just been good control wards, good setup of vision around the neutrals. And as they go deeper into the enemy jungle, with that Night Harvester picked up against the Chem Tank Poppy, Sion once again wants to play a direction as Arla puts the ward in, but it might be a little bit too late. The hop trying to time it here, but as Sion gets the auto and takes yet a turret shot, the depth charge means they're going to commit, and XinLiu taking 1-2 turret shots. Yeah, he goes golden, but Sion now flashes. Zika now heading back as well. TP burnt, and Invictus Gaming, that dive was messier than a 4-year-old child getting spaghetti on their pants.
Yeah, I mean, they've started flinging it out of the pram here, and LNG, they're just catching it.
Where's the mum? Well, as Tarzan's running forward, that could be the dad here, because Yuekai is going to be charging away. Maybe a little bit too real, Dagda, as he gets out. Ult burn, but that was just a pile of mess at the daycare.
And now you just end up giving the Rift Herald across LNG. You just said, hey, there's an opportunity for IG to try and play around Wink with the bullet time and do these cool things, but no, it's completely out of the question now, and Sion, I find a bit more.
Oh, missed the spear at melee range, though. Sion still pouncing forward. XinLiu coming in with the dredge line, but Doinb is just trying to buy his own time as the spear, again, not going to connect. Light, Gale forcing forward. The ultimate comes through, and so's too from Wink as the spear, once again. Sion, stop cosplaying here. We all know as who, as Wink dodges away. Good sidestep there from Lwandy. And Ulta just flying across the rift of this 9-kill game that spotted no kills for the last 2 hilarious plays.
Someday, someone will hit something. But that day is not today. As IG... Sion, what are you doing?
He missed the pounce. He missed the pounce. Oh. He missed the pounce over the wall, Dagda. That is a solo bolo that... that just sucks to watch. IG lost Wink as well. And this is not what you'd say mojo. This is not a mojo game from IG. It is just all going downhill very fast.
From mojo to so-so. A very low. This has just been just a general decline from IG. This is, I don't know what's happening, man. Like, shouldn't getting caught out. You get another member of IG caught out in River. Like, LNG aren't doing anything. Like, they're not doing anything spectacular. They're kind of just meeting IG in weird places that IG shouldn't be. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. And then Wink, I don't know what this positioning is either. Like, just walking straight through River where you know Sion has just died. Like, this is just, you're never in a good spot here.
Remember when you're like, where's the engage on LNG? And you said, you know, there's so many situations where for IG, like, they can keep creating space. But if you walk into a Poppy, see, that's the problem, Dagda. Walking into a Poppy and giving a wall, that makes it a bit easy for LNG. And I think right now, despite not having 2 dragons, easy is the nature of this game as LNG moving towards River. Spears finally connecting here from Sion once again, but for LNG looking to make their way through with Arlo about to go Mega Nut too.
Ooh, Arlo been caught.
Yeah, but he's going to go Mega, and the problem is with a full-on engage here as he ult against the wall, he's still out, he's still there, the needlework flying through, but Yuekai can't get the target. LNG sent another ultimate in Light's version of Gravitum. The Moonlight Vigil enables the 2-man lockdown as Poke still flies through, and at least Sion has healing. But messy engage coming through, to say the least, as Dragon up 3 is going to start, and teleport's coming in. The hammer away. Thank you, says Tarzan. No jungler in the pit. LNG bursted away. Yuekai flashes as well. Spear does not connect, and Tarzan is just yoinking this game from under IG's foot.
I mean, this is just going real messy from IG. So I was about to say, IG can actually try and use the range here if they want to just keep poking. You got Sion there, you can do some damage. You don't have to try and rush the play because you want to try and set up correctly for Wink's ultimate, but they basically did neither. They saw Allah coming in on the flank and they try to turn onto him. So Wink's ultimate does nothing. You've got no real setup in the front line either here. Everyone has to flash over the wall. And Sion, so by the way, Sion nearly steals this. Like, I wonder if he hadn't thrown up that Unbreakable, that spear would have stole the dragon because Tarzan didn't have smite.
That's true. It's still great play, right? I need to be positive about LNG because you're right, Dagda. They haven't done anything that screams like, oh my god, LNG are just like playing this so cleanly. But they're good enough where the names on this team, the individual skill, are punishing Invictus Gaming in this first game of the series. And with a 2.5k gold lead, with how you said LNG wanted to coast this one along, they're doing just fine with 2 items now on Doinb, 2 items about to come up on Light, another turret going down. And for Invictus Gaming right now, Dagda, when you have a Nidalee that falls behind him, his Fortune that does the same, please tell me what this comp hopes to do as we stroll into the 4th, 5th Dragons into the mid game.
I mean, realistically, you still have a ton of damage that can come out from Wink on this Misfortune ultimate. We're still at a point where he's relevant, but we are starting to teeter past that now, because Zika is probably going to be the main person that I'm starting to look at on IG to see if he can carry fights. If he can get onto Light, you're lacking a ton of damage on LNG side, so it's going to be on Zika to see if he can actually get access to the LNG AD carry. Otherwise, I think LNG are in a really good spot. Like, once they have control of the game like this, and they're able... Oh, hang on.
Well, Tarzan, you speak of control, but actually, yeah, look, into the wall! Dagda the combo I talked about. XinLiu has to flash away, so the depth charge comes through as well, but Lwandy's door is up. Engage on the backside as they find Doinb. Hang on, LNG. We know this story as Light's still poking them down. A Gale Force away from Yuekai. And IG still have a numbers advantage, but for LNG, pressing forward, hoping that Ala gets into Gnar. With the flash available, he can make some work as against the wall. Yuekai's not tanky enough, turning into zombie forward. Ala, they're all backwards, right into the yeet of LNG. It's perfectly done as the flash onto Zika. Ala returning to form bit here in game number 1, as it looks so perfect to round out that fight.
I mean, that could be Baron now for LNG as well as they start to move over. Should be, because it's on an ocean map, a couple of those honey blossom or honey fruits around the place, but may not even go for it. Just going to instead tank it up. And I mean, with nobody around on IG for quite a bit, maybe they can take this. Although actually TP available for Yuekai, 15 seconds on Zika, and not really the best guns for Light in this situation. He even has the tank, which means he's doing reduced damage to Baron.
True. But the good thing is that ward expires, so this one a little bit more predictable. Doinb's there with the seismic shove to zone him out. They pull off a Baron. They pull off a Baron, Dagda. Yuekai's solo TP is, I guess, a saving grace as LNG just didn't feel confident enough to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, Light didn't have the best guns, and when you tank Baron, you don't deal as much damage to it, but you'll see here, I think Doinb, unfortunately, just misses with the wall. Could have tried to catch a few more people, but as you say, Tarzan getting a good engage against the wall. The ult missing here from Tarzan, though, means that Doinb does end up falling, but once the combo from Wink is out and Zika is taken low, you've no more damage in this. Like, Wink's auto attack damage is pretty much negligible at this stage, and Ala does a really good job of catching people with these boomerangs to set up again for Tarzan's engage. Good step past presence to prevent IG from following up, and a great Gnar from Ala to allow Light to finish off these low health members.
Well, LNG getting a pain in IG's side at this point. The kills go down as we come back. Just a quick reminder, the Baron might not have fallen, but we got Dragon up in another 40 seconds, Dagda, and it's a 4k gold lead. LNG picked up the last one. They still have those items brewing a lot quicker than IG stuff. And I know you talked about the damage to come through from Light, onto Light, I should say. But as we saw in the last fight, it's so hard to catch him unawares, as there's so many frontliners for LNG. Ala, Tarzan, Lwandy, all in the way between Invictus Gaming and this Aphelios.
I will say, though, LNG do have to try and start either a fight at this dragon in 8 seconds fast, or burn that dragon down very quickly, which is why you can see they're trying to get deep wards here against IG, because if IG are able to post up and start, getting Wink from a good position over the wall, ulting into the pit, Shun getting some spear damage, they would actually be in a pretty bad spot. But IG know that they just don't have control over this bot side, so they back away. They let that second dragon go over, and suddenly these ocean dragons are becoming an issue now for IG, because a lot of their damage is from long range, trying to play out through Wink and Shun. But when you've got the ocean dragons that can let you heal back up, it makes things a hell of a lot easier.
I'm not going to lie, when you started talking about, the setup there and what we kind of want to see, the mini-map expanded, and I thought, hang on, did you bring the LEC tech with you, back to the LPL? Like, Are we going to see some circles, nice little arrows drawn on the minimap? But unfortunate. I feel like we're there. We're there soon. And at some point, our English broadcast is going to have to deal with lines being drawn on by the Chinese side. And, you know, we're going to have a tech upgrade there. So I'm looking forward to the day. But irrelevant to what you were saying. Because the core of what you're saying here is that still for LNG, despite being able to get caught out, the damage to come through from IG, the Ocean Soul matters so much. And in 4 minutes' time, we get to see if they move to Soul Point. But for now, LNG trying to bait up the Baron start. And IG are here. They're clued in. But as Doinb gets tagged by a spear, IG know they have to keep the space. Tarzan, Predators back in. Don't find the pullers. Doinb's wall, not the greatest. Wink and Zika can still get out, and so can XinLiu. Now that Yuekai's in the back line as well, they want to pincer maneuver onto LNG. Dredge line to connect onto Tarzan, who's not tanking up for Shun. Jumps back on in. Tarzan, I wanted the front liners for now. Is Doinb in an awkward position, but Yuekai's out. Even awkwarder. Wink, the awkwardest ult, as Gravitum is given free. Light's ulti misses as well. Dagda, everything's missing, except maybe now Doinb is the seismic shove. Redeems, but everybody missing. However, LNG have more steam in the tank.
I mean, now IG are missing 2 members as well, which means LNG are going to move over towards this Baron. And yeah, I mean, I was waiting a long time for Wink's ultimate to try and go, but I mean, I don't think that could have been worse timing. And now LNG, again, like LNG are playing these fights well. It's just that it looks so much smoother because IG just haven't been able to find the success. Ala just going to dive, Yuekai.
The flash! Okay, Yuekai, I respect the effort, but Ala with a solo kill and Baron now picked up. Dagda, you're going to get a replay to walk me through even further because this game is something else, man. Let's look at the misses to start.
Again, like XinLiu, I don't mind or engaging here onto Steadfast Press. You just want somebody to take the fight. But here is like, all right, Wink, I want these ultimates to go down. Ults, you can start the ult anytime ult. But like, he ends up leaving it so late that everyone on LNG has already moved out of position. And it means that when XinLiu goes to re-engage, the damage is already done here. Like, it's... And the problem is, again, because they haven't fully opted in towards like range or scaling or anything along those lines, LNG are able to close that gap because IG have already committed to going in towards melee range. And once Ala is able to land a couple of these slows, it's just so easy then for LNG to chase down IG.
I mean, the Randuins helps out with that, right? Like, Q, Randuins, Ala also chasing as we see one of our own with Tarzan in the mid lane. That Predator off the cooldown continuously being repeated as they open up the inner turret, and LNG continue to pursue their track down the mid lane. Weaver's Wall from Doinb to zone off as that will quickly disappear, and LNG will be stopped here for now as at least the poke deals with the minion wave, and at least Zika is trying to make a trade of his own, but what are they going to lose in response?
I mean, they'll... Oh, Ala!
Okay, well, back into the back line, and Shun now has to flash away, but he's about to die. The Winter's Bite secures that. Concussive blows OP as Wink now versus 3. He flashes away, buying his own time. The bullet time comes out, however, late to get a trade, but LNG still healthy enough with 4 members in. Zika now standing here strong, but LNG, they're going to get what they came for. More blood, the inhibitors, and Dagda at tattered bases. I don't think they're stopping here.
No, I mean, Tarzan going to step up. Zika already has to pop the Hallowed Mist, which means Light can go ham if he ever gets a chance here.
And LNG just going to poke them out. IG, this is your base falling. Nexus now exposed. And I guess we want to preserve the KDAs as Tarzan ults for the sake of it. And the kills on Zika to finish off the game. GG for LNG in game number 1, but that was a doozy, to say the least.
I wasn't a big fan of the draft from IG, and their execution left a lot to be desired, but looking across at LNG, I mean, this was pretty good, right? Tarzan had a really good early game, making sure that he's able to play through the top side, getting advantages in the spot lane as well. And when you look at how they were able to move around the map for that early Rift Herald as well, they end up with the numbers advantage there. So honestly, like LNG kind of playing towards their strengths a lot better than we've kind of seen from them in the past. So definitely a bit of I'll say a half step up for LNG in this game.
Yeah, and a lot of people get a wrong idea, right? Not criticizing LNG, but still, this is a team that we kind of had those expectations of come spring, come their debut together as a team. Doinb having a phenomenal performance, and we didn't get to talk about it much in that game, Dagda, but number 1 in MVPs right now, 6 MVPs. LNG, outside of Doinb, their next highest MVP achiever is Light at 2. So there's a reason that Doinb keeps pulling up MVP after MVP in a field of mess that is LNG in some of these series. At the very least, Doinb still stands tall. But on the other side, this is not the IG we knew to be quite clinical with some of their fights, Dagda. Bloodthirsty, yet also, I think, tempered with their aggression. This game number 1 was very messy, and it didn't look like the IG we've been trying to hype up.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad to see. I mean, it felt like the wheels came off for IG there. I mean, the Braum was a good answer into the misfortune, where Wink wasn't quite able to get himself set up in the manner that he wanted to a lot of the times. But I don't really feel like IG played towards their strengths, which was like trying to find the poke and using the range advantages they had. And again, kind of the biggest gripe that I had from them in the direction that they decided to take in their drafts. But to give LNG their due, like the third dragon that we saw LNG actually fighting for, they had a good flank position coming in from Ala, where they were trying to make sure there wasn't ways for IG to use that range, but unfortunately for IG, they kind of gave the engage that LNG were missing in a lot of situations, because like Doinb's walls weren't phenomenal. You know, we had a couple of those combos that you pointed out, Hysterics, with the like wall into the charge coming through from Tarzan, but they weren't exactly the game changers. It was more kind of IG engaging into the meat grinder that was Light.
Yeah, when you said like, where's the phenomenal engage from LNG? And it didn't matter because IG are the ones, as you just said, that gave it to them. So it feels like IG in this first game, yeah, a bit off kilter. It's sad to see considering that Shun had 100% ban rate against him with the Nidalee. It finally gets through and we could see its potential, but with the rest of Invictus Gaming, it's hard, Dagda, when you don't have that set up, when you get the first couple of kills, but these skirmishes were just a couple of oopsie daisies that put it in the other direction.
Yeah, I mean, it was never really able to lean into their strengths, right? We talk about like Shun maybe having the opportunity to invade with the Nidalee. All right, well, now we've got a lane in top and a lane in mid that can't really get priority. You look at, oh, okay, well, maybe we can try and play for dragons. Well, we're not really getting the fights we want to dragons. The first Rift Tower that comes up, well, we don't actually have Wink, who's our main damage dealer at this point of the game there. Yeah. So it kind of felt like IG didn't really know what they wanted to achieve with this composition, whereas LNG were willing to wait it out, play for their late game with Light and win out.
Yeah, so at this point, we've got to ask, what's in store for the rest of the series, because LNG taking away a clean 27-minute win, or clean enough that it felt like they were always in charge or in somewhat control. We'll go to a break. When we return, hopefully IG give us a little more. Otherwise, LNG are going to make it a quick series to open up our